Hello everyone, this is Coach Dinosaur. Here is another video, a continuation of the Sicilian Dragon Levenfish variation from part 1. We have chosen Dragon Line in our opening repertoire because it can accelerate the player's tactical, strategical, and theoretical side. Aside from that, Dragon has been used by formidable or elite grandmasters such as the world champions himself, Magnus Carlsen and Vishwanathan Anand, and many more. Levenfish is one of the antidote to stop the formation of dragon. But in this video, I will show you how to combat Levenfish line with white's best options. Here we go. The line starts with e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, and f4. In the previous game, we have check bishop g7. Though bishop g7 is still can be played with the for example, so it's quite a messy game. Black can still study this line, but absolutely I am not fan of this opening line, so I leave it to the reader if you like the side of white or black here, because in this position white still has the slight advantage. So we will study one of the major option for black to continue in this variation. So to stop the e5, there are two options. One is knight c6, knight bd7. But here we will study knight c6. So, knight c6. There are options also for white, but we will discuss specifically with knight takes c6. Knight takes c6, of course, b takes c6, and now white plays e5. So here black can also choose to capture the pawn, but again this is a bit awkward for black because the king has not castled anymore, and if you like this position, you can also study this line. But our suggestion here, instead of pawn takes e4, is knight d7. I am also fan of playing white in this position. Normally I choose to play bishop c4, and I have many experience against national master and some top level players with the move d5, which is not the best option, and it's not even a good move, but it only gives white chance to create an advantage. So here I played knight takes d5, c takes d5, of course. If not, black loses pawn, and here queen takes d5. What a move. Here white has two attacks. One is the rook and the other one is the pawn. So of course if black moves the rook, of course it's a checkmate. And if black plays this move, then queen can capture the rook, and of course white has an edge here, an even winning position. Of course, in a game that I have played, my opponent played the knight b6 to protect the rook. At the same time, the king can still move away and just find a way to exchange pieces, since black has one knight advantage in exchange of pawns. But here I'm very comfortable because the king is not safe. So here white should play bishop e3 with the unprecedented castling, and then you can win the queen. Then followed by king c7, rook d1, attacking the queen. Of course, there's no other way to protect the queen. It's if knight d7 is worse, right? And it's totally pinned, and black has to give up the knight, and of course this is the only option. But here black is actually having a hard time to activate the pieces and find safe squares for the black's king. So I leave it to the reader. You can study this, but in this position white really has the advantage, and in the game that I played, I won not so easy, but comfortably against a national master. So ideally d5 is not a good option here. Bishop g7 is played, is the best move against such game plan. So here white is now capturing the pawn, since the pawn is unprotected. If pawn takes, rook, queen can capture the pawn back. But here we will discuss that in short while. White can also play e6 here. Black can just capture the pawn, and then after bishop takes e6, black can now play queen b6. Looks like black's king is not safe, but actually white is in even worse position than black's king, because it's actually white's king cannot castle, and if white's king castled on the queen side, he's also in big trouble because of the bishop, the dark squared bishop on g7, and the b file is widely open. So here black has a very good advantage. And if for example let's play here, absolutely it's not a good option. If for example queen e2, then we have bishop a6, or if queen b3, queen f3, then knight c5, bishop takes, rook takes. If castle, here black is really doing fine. The f file is opened. The bishop's file diagonal to h8 to a1 is very good for the bishop g7, and the queen is also well prepared. The knight is strong in such c5 square. So here black has an edge. So that's just if white plays e6, then black can counter such move. So of course, if we're here now in one of the major line, if e takes d6, absolutely, if e takes d6, then queen takes d6, it's not a good position for black. So here, instead of e takes d6, black can now play n b6, which is really quite good. This is one of the line that can give black uh, equalization, and if black didn't know the best option, like for example here, pawn takes pawn, and then absolutely queen takes, knight takes, then black is winning by one piece advantage. And if for example he plays now here, bishop is under attack, so bishop has to move. If for example he plays some check here, bishop b7, bishop b3, it's equal pawns, but the structure, the bishop on g7 is really strong, and at the same time it's not good for this diagonal to be open for white, because there are tricks, and b file is also open. That's why there is a big pressure on the b file and that diagonal, this diagonal. So here instead, bishop b3, bishop b3, and here typically, if you are a typical player, absolutely you will capture, because it's free pawn, and here the position still, black managed to equalize, and actually a very very tiny advantage for black here only. But here there's much more than e takes d6. It's king g1, castle, I mean, sorry, castling, and looks like is giving up the pawn. So for example, let's see, d takes e7, queen takes e7, queen e2 to protect, and now check. So it's a check, so normally you can't castle if your king is under check. So g3 to protect, and after that queen h3 to stop the castling of the king. And now there are threats in the e file diagonal. So for example, here white plays bishop e3, absolutely castle, and now c4, bishop takes, and the queen is in a dilemma position where he has to take care of the rook. Okay. And if for example he plays this move, then is the same we have queen h5 to stop the castling. And here really black is doing very very fine in this position. So after the queen h3, white is really in big trouble. So let's proceed. Bishop g4, queen f1, queen h5. Now the king cannot steal castle. Queen f2, and here c5, which is to trap the bishop on b3. That's the simplest way of such threat. So after the castle, and now rook fe8 threatening rook takes e3, and also there's a threat of c5. So if ever, for example, black captures the pawn, and then bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, and it's white's last final say to his queen, or else it's already a checkmate. So for example, queen moves and then it's a checkmate. So we have used a line against the Levenfish that is good for those who are seeking more preparation in this line. We will still have some other future analysis in this Levenfish, because it's not a few variations that need to analyze Levenfish, but it's really quite some variations to study. So we have, after we just studied this line. So again, knight c6 is one of the best options here. So we have capture, knight d7, bishop c4, and now bishop g7. So the capture of the pawn is not actually dangerous. But here there is also another option, final option, that white can do. For the viewers taking of important move, which is queen f3. Queen f3, not really the, I think the threat is really queen takes c6. That's one of the idea. And of course, if you play such move again, we have reached another line where it was played just a while ago, and not really a good option to play with. But here black can now respond with d takes e5, and after queen takes c6, attacking the rook, rook b8, castle, and now bishop b7, queen a4, castle. Here there are other options, like for example bishop e3. There's knight b6, of course. If bishop takes, queen takes, king e7, king h1, of course it's really good for black. And if for example this has been played, absolutely pawn takes pawn, this is not so good because of queen d4 threatens the bishop on c4, because the king has to be protected. And if rook takes, simple move e6, and example rook d1, good move queen g7, threatens a checkmate on g2. Of course, if he protects it, then easily can get the bishop on e3. And if for example he plays g3 to protect the checkmate, then simple move bishop c6, threatening the discovered attack. So if, like for example, rook takes, bishop takes, yeah, queen a3, and now here there is a little trick here, like example, if queen takes, check, king f1, g5. So I will leave it to the reader. This looks one rook down, but actually the position is really bad for white. You can, if you want a very comfortable position, then you don't need to sacrifice the rook. You can just play queen e5, and here white's position is not really good, because the the a a8 to h1, the g1 to a7 diagonal are really weak for white. So here, and if for example he didn't play the bishop e3, if for example he captures, yeah, that's a free pawn. So free pawn, then attacking the knight on the bishop on c4. So the bishop has to be protected. So we have bishop e2. If for example he plays this move, so just capture. If bishop takes, and then check, king h1, e5, bishop h6, and knight c4, attacking the queen. So the queen can only move on a4, knight takes, and I don't think that white can still survive in this position. So let's just, for the viewers clarification, so we have here a formation where two bishops, a very strong two bishops against not well coordinated pieces of white. So here, so after the queen takes a7, here again is nb6. So let's have a bishop e2, and then after e takes, bishop takes f4, queen d4, king h1, e5, same plan, bishop h6, rook e8, and black is, for me, is really in a good position, because even though white has 3 pass pawns on the queen side, but the king is really not safe. The king, the queen, the white's queen is also not practically misplaced. So I leave it to the viewer to study more in this type of line, and hope you like this video. Just click subscribe for more videos, and thank you for watching.